say really is we are in the middle of springtime severe weather season, right? What better reason can we have to start talking about emergency preparedness? So I'm glad to be here today and good to see you all. We've got a great program full of some knowledgeable speakers today, this morning. So I want to just get right into that. So without further ado, I want to introduce Mr. Tracy Scott Miller. He's the Board Vice President for the Louisville ISD School Board. He'll say a few welcoming remarks.
Good morning, everybody. Good to see you, and good to see some familiar faces in the friendly faces in the front row here. But thank you for coming to this event. It's an important event. As a city councilman, I was involved in quite a bit of these activities, and was able to. I believe there's a FEMA or a county location up near Geyer High School that's an impressive facility where they have a mobile unit that will come out to your city and deal with emergencies after a storm or those types of things. And actually probably surprised to many people within the school district, we have a security operations center where we look at weather events, we look at situations where students might have been harmed by someone when they're walking to school and that type of thing. But our objective in Louisville ISD is to make sure that our teachers and our students have a safe and secure place for them to work and for the students to thrive in their education, which is the reason that they're there. And so Louisville High School, the school that you're in, is our marquee high school. It's of course, our district is named Louisville ISD, and we have 5 high schools with 5 feeder patterns, but this is home of Farmer Pride. And I know that there are some here that represent that very strongly in the front row. And as always, it's a pleasure to be with Dr. Burgess. I think someone who advocates our community, represents all of us, even those who may not be on the same political side, but certainly Dr. Burgess is a man that I've come to learn cares about people, cares about our schools, cares about making a difference. And so I know Mayor Durham will introduce him, but thank you for being here. I'm glad you're able to participate and be in one of our schools just to see what they're like and the type of environment that we create for our students to make sure that they can thrive going forward. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, sir. Next up, guys, it's my honor to introduce our mayor, Rudy Durham, here at the city of Louisville, who will introduce our sponsor for this event.
Thank you, Josh. Good morning. I want to welcome everyone to Congressman Michael Burgess Emergency Preparedness Summit and Fair. I'm going to have 2 minute remarks, but we'll introduce my former neighbor. He moved to another part of Pittman County, but he is my former neighbor. We have to catch up on some of the things going on in the old neighborhood. So, and I just wanted to say welcome to Congressman Dr. Michael Burgess. Thank you.
Hey, Rudy. Rudy's right. We did. I was his neighbor for a number of years. I think he's the one that turned me in for the high grass on the side of my house. No hard feelings. And it was good to. It is good to see you this morning. It was good to catch up. Tracy, thank you for your willingness to participate in a number of public events recently, and I really do appreciate that. And Josh, thank you for agreeing to moderate this morning. You know, one of my early memories in living in Denton, I don't remember whether it was the late 50s or the early 1960s, but it was the month of April. It was April 30th, and there was a big, you see it on the weather map, you get the warm front coming up that stalls up somewhere just a little bit north of Waco. You've got a dry line that's moving this direction from Abilene, and then you've got a big Canadian cold front coming down somewhere from Kansas and Nebraska, and all of those things just seem to congregate or intersect right above Denton County, and that was one of those days. We had a house that had a basement, a little unusual for Texas, and my dad got us all in the basement, and we huddled there until this great crisis had passed, and there was lightning and there was thunder and tremendous wind. I was convinced that we were in the middle of the eye of some sort of hurricane or tornado, that it truly must be. Later on, it was described only as straight line winds. But I think back to those days, we were huddled around a little transistor radio trying to get information. And bear in mind, this is back in the late 50s, early 60s. The radio broadcast station was in Dallas, and they weren't as concerned about what was happening in Denton at the time as we were. It's like we have to be thinking about it because we could have rain later tonight, but we were there in the middle of in the eye of the storm, as it were, and I'll just never forget that. And one thing that hasn't changed is Texas can still have very significant weather. We can have other events that can impact our lives, but weather is something that I think about in the month of April, because things can happen and they can change in a big hurry. What has changed since the late 1950s and the early 1960s is the population density of this area. And we're fortunate to live where we do. We're fortunate that we have a mayor and city council and school district that we do, that the area is attractive and people are moving here. And the state of Texas, now that I'm a member of Congress, I think about things like this, and congressional reapportionment happens every 10 years. Between the 2000 census and the 2010 census, the state of Texas added 4 congressional districts. That is basically the population of Arkansas that was picked up and moved to Texas in that 10-year span, and we're continuing to grow. The reason that's significant is Denton, Texas, the North Texas Metroplex, is in Tornado Alley. It may be the bottom section of Tornado Alley, but nevertheless, there we are. But we're one of the most densely populated areas that exists in Tornado Alley. So every April, I do try to bring people together, and let's just talk about, number one, what we should be on the lookout for, how should we prepare ourselves, and whose responsibility is it if things start to get out of hand. And I'll come back to this theme throughout the day. The primary responsibility, the first responsibility, is always on us. It's on us as citizens. It's on you. Sure, we've got great federal partners, we've got great state partners, we've got great city and county partners, and you'll hear from all of them this morning. You'll hear from our school district partners. But the first sign of trouble, your ability to get through that, is largely going to rest with you. And that's what emergency preparedness is all about, and that's why we gather every April to think about what some of the possibilities are, and then how do we structure things, how do we arrange things, what is the type of plan that needs to be made, what is the type of exit strategy that needs to be made, the communications plan that needs to be made within a family. And the good news is there are all kinds of people outside the auditorium who are there to help you with various aspects of emergency preparedness, and we're going to hear from experts here in the auditorium. What was it, Mr. Mayor, last week or a little over 2 weeks ago? Tornado in Lewisville, Texas. There was one in Keller, Watauga, the same day. Also part of my congressional district. One in North Fort Worth, also part of my congressional district. Fortunately, I believe injuries were minimal. Property damage, obviously significant, and people will be having to deal with and make adjustments from that weather event for many, many months. The one that stands out in my mind, and we all think of it from time to time, is that tornado outbreak right after Christmas in Garland. And you know, we don't think about it when you have those severe weather alerts, but it's important to bear in mind, what are your plans for during the time that weather event might occur in the area? And remember that one of the most significant losses of life that evening occurred on a highway overpass. Highway overpasses, as we've heard at other times when we've had these events, highway overpasses can be extremely dangerous in times of high wind, both under and over. And many of the lives that were lost that night were because of wind that affected traffic on a highway overpass. But it's not just weather. We had a structural collapse at Argyle High School. ice storm several years ago that led to the cobblestone ice on the freeway that prevented people literally from being able to be mobile in the area. The bad wreck that occurred on 35 several years ago that shut things down in both directions. Very, very difficult to mobilize when things like that happen, and of course communications also can be critical during those times. Let me just say, and you'll see a number of them in the booths that are outside, and then out in the parking lot, there are a number of exhibits from our first responders. And I am proud of our first responders here in North Texas. They commit so much of their time and their effort to the safety of all of us. It reminds me that it is us as private citizens who bear the first responsibility, but we've got some great partners who will show up in times of emergency. FEMA is, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, is in fact located up in Denton, the Region 6 offices. They have been great partners in these safety fairs over the years, and certainly want to thank the people at FEMA for taking time to be with us here today. They have their list, their templates that you can follow so that you can be your own first responder in the time of an emergency. We have some special presentations that are always big crowd pleasers. I call it pups and props, or dogs and drones. We've got the rescue dogs and the aerial, I'm not supposed to say drone anymore, the unmanned aerial vehicle platforms that are going to be putting on demonstration after we conclude this. We will we'll finish all of the panel discussions here. I'll make some wrap-up remarks, and then we'll transition outside for, I think it is the drones first, and then the dogs. But I have learned, Rudy, over the years, it is hard to compete with fuzzy animals, and so I don't try to any longer. We'll let the dogs close the show today. I will not attempt to speak after they have demonstrated their abilities. We'll have presenters here from Louisville Independent School District. We'll have presenters from our local and emergency, state and local emergency offices to understand better how our schools and communities are prepared and the cooperative efforts that occur in responding to disasters. And just once again, I want to give thanks to our speakers who have agreed to participate. I want to give thanks to the people out in the exhibit hall and out in the parking lot. Certainly they've taken their time, and many of them have brought exhibits to the event this morning. But I want to thank you, the citizens, for showing up, because again, I can't stress this enough. It begins and ends with each of us as private citizens, our ability to withstand and then recover from any event that may be visited upon North Texas, whether it be natural, whether it be man-made, or whether it be of some other variety. But Josh, I'm going to turn it back over to you, and we'll get started with our first panel. Thanks everyone for being here this morning. I'll stay with you throughout the morning, and we'll be talking from time to time.
Thank you, Congressman. And many thanks for you and your staff's efforts on putting this event on. Mayor, Tracy, thank you guys for your comments. Congressman's remarks about increase in population, severe weather, and other hazards that could occur really underscore the importance of the discussion that we're having today. It outlines the importance of emergency management. So many thanks for that. Next up in our program, I want to introduce Matt Garrett, who's the Director of Safety and Security for Louisville ISD, and he's brought with him this morning his colleagues that serve as panelists for a discussion presentation and follow-up presentation regarding how our schools are preparing for emergency.
Good morning. Again, my name is Matthew Garrett. I'm the Director of Safety and Security for Louisville Independent School District. I'm joined up on the stage today with three amazing principals within LISD. I'll let them introduce themselves real quick.
My name's Jeffrey Kosh. I'm the principal here at Louisville High School.
Dr. Nicole Jung, I'm the principal at Creek Valley Middle School.
Kelly Hayek, the principal at Old Settlers Elementary.
ideally meant for LISD. I can tell you from my experiences throughout Texas and this region, all the ISDs are really focused on having a safe and secure learning environment. While some of the things might be different that we talk about, their focus is still on having a safe school. So throughout this presentation as well, we kind of always hear about the Sandy Hook, the Columbine, Virginia Tech, but there's also a whole nother host of threats that we talk about, which is weather. And we learn a lot from throughout the country, like Moore, Tuscaloosa, Joplin, about how severe weather impacts our schools. We look at all hosts of public health threats that impact our schools, and these are our frontline folks that have to ensure that our school and our kids are safe. We rely heavily on our principals, and they've never let us down because they are focused on creating a safe and secure environment. So we're going to kind of chop this up, and as a panel discussion, I'll kind of hit the highlights of what the district does, but what's unique about schools is from elementary to middle to high school, they do have some unique situations they got to deal with, and these folks are creative. They've always had the solutions at hand and what works well for their campuses. So real quick, in the district, just like every other district in the state of Texas, we're required by law to have a district emergency operations plan, just like the county, just like the city. We're also required to have campus emergency operations plans. So every one of our campuses in this district has a campus emergency operations plan. LISD goes a step further. We provide emergency procedures guides to all of our campus administrators. This is more detailed information, step by step, of what happens for a host of ideas. It's a flat front back information, and that's kind of like their go-to procedure guide. We also require every office and every classroom to have a classroom emergency guide. So again, just some basic fundamental procedures for campus staff or even students if they needed to know just a couple of things that they need to worry about during a threat or a severe weather threat. They use one of these in the classrooms. I'm going to go down the line real quick. If y'all have any experiences with planning at your campuses, what's worked well, the things that you have to think about, we'll start with high school.
It'd be really short-sighted and foolish of us if we did all of our fire drills, all of our severe weather drills, all of our intruder drills, all during second period, because that's most convenient for the principals and the teachers. But truth be known, things like that can happen any time of the day, whether that's even before school gets started, first period, second period, third period, fourth period, after school. So when we plan our drills and our go through our safety measures, we have to make sure that we give our teachers and our students the real idea that you need to know what needs to happen when you're in this place at any time of the day. So we have to vary our drills throughout the course of the year.
As we were prepping for this presentation, one of the items that came up is something that happens at the middle school level or as students transition from elementary to secondary. It's the first phase in their academic career where they begin to transition frequently in classes. And so we have to establish that standard for students to know that they have a reconvention location with their teachers, that they have one teacher that's their designated reconvention place or contact person in the case of a fire drill or in the case of an evacuation. That they know that that person is the person they go to in the event of an emergency, no matter what class they're in or no matter what flexible location they're in, or if we were at an hour lunch situation, which is something that occurs in the secondary level that may not necessarily be the case in elementary. So we sort of retrain that emergency preparedness model at secondary. That's kind of a different situation than it would be at elementary. So that's kind of a way that looks differently at middle school than elementary.
At the elementary level, we're kind of in a unique position because we have students who have never experienced any type of these drills before. So especially with our incoming kindergartners and our younger kids, our first graders, we kind of do a kind of mock walkthrough before we do a drill with them just to prepare them, and we also have, the fear factor with the little guys. So we have to make sure that they know that we are doing a drill, but it's in preparation in case something, real would happen. So we kind of practice a run through with them before the actual drill so that they're familiar with where they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to do. So when the real drill happens, they're more prepared and we don't have as many tears.
The
one added element that I forgot to mention is that at a high school, in secondary schools, we have so many after-school events, whether that's football games on Friday nights, band competitions after school. And so not only are we preparing for our students and our staff, but we also have a tremendous amount of community members on our campus. And so we do have plans for if severe weather hits, certain situations on where we're going to relocate, not just our students and our staff, but also the community that comes to our high schools or middle schools to visit and be spectators.
One of the common things I think you'll hear throughout the day, and I've already heard it once, and you're going to hear it again just now, our public safety partners in this area, in Denton County itself, are amazing. You know, we just talked about having a stadium emergency plan for large events, football games, and we rely on those partnerships with our police and fire, and they're always there to support us, to keep our events safe, just like they're here today to support us on this event, and we're very grateful for that. Switching over to training and drills, which we kind of already talked about just a little bit ago, but in LISD, we require National Incident Management System training for all of our principals. We require 3 courses for all principals. So if they are newly hired, we give them a few months to train up on that, because we do want them to have a common understanding of the incident command system. We want to know, or have them have the knowledge to be able to integrate into a command system if something was to happen at their campus level, because they are in charge of their facility, but they need to integrate with, you know, fire and police incident commanders to make sure that the event flows smoothly. We do annual functional and tabletop exercises with our city partners. We bring in schools to those that bring in a little bit more lower level in the weeds kind of decision-making skills, because you know, with drills sometimes they're high level, very broad, but we want to think about these little challenges. You know, do we even think about a school bus that's going off to their planned swimming lessons? You know, sometimes we don't have that level of detail where these campus leaders have to know those details at all times, and that's just one of those amazing skills that our principals have to have. As you heard, we do campus drills. We require a fire drill every month. We require 2 lockdown drills a year, and we require 2 severe weather drills a year. As part of those drills, we can do a lot of different things. I know, Nicole, if you want to talk about what you do for your lockdown drills and how you, or fire drills, and how you kind of throw some injects in.
Well, in addition to doing our fire drills, we also, or our lockdown drills, we also pull fire alarms and do some different things like that during those lockdown drills to make sure that our kids know that there are things that folks do in the case of a real emergency to try to pull you out or draw you out of the classroom or draw you out of your safe lockdown areas, you know, for obvious not so great reasons. So our kids are very well prepared for that emergency situation. We had a really great circumstance of a situation where we have cameras in our flexible learning spaces where we can monitor what the students are doing at all times, even though there may not be a staff member present. And we had students who self-locked down in a flexible learning room, and so we can see what they did during that time. They pulled the window curtain down, turned their lights off, turned their iPads off, so there's no light in the room. They got back in the corner like they were supposed to, and these are kids that are alone during a lockdown. We pulled the fire alarm, so you can then see the fire alarm lighting up, and they stayed locked down in that room, despite, you know, what there might be their natural instinct to evacuate, but these kids are so well trained that they knew that they were not supposed to, you know, to evacuate at that point. And that's part of the training that comes from continuing to drill and continuing to drill. And so, you know, ultimately the district safety and security office awarded these kids for their great response to this drill situation, because this is not something that middle school kids necessarily would always know to do, but they knew exactly what to do. And we were real thankful to have the video of watching these kids be able to go through that drill successfully, independently. And that's the result of our district expectation to do these drills and do them and take them seriously. So that's kind of an example of how continuing to do that work will make sure we keep our kids safe in the end.
And drills are real easy. They're very systematic. They're very organized. You're going to leave this room. You're going to go down this staircase, down this hallway, and then you're safe. And we know that in real life events, sometimes stairwells are not usable, hallways are blocked. So sometimes when we do drills, we'll set up barricades, and then the teachers and the students also have to know an alternative route to get out of the building or the classroom or different rooms to go to. So we try to, though they're drills, and it is a safe environment to do these drills, we try to throw some different situations at them so that when something happens for real and they have to adjust, they know exactly their next route to go to or the next room to go to. And so we try to kind of keep it interesting sometimes with those drills.
I was just going to say, add to what I said, we try to keep the kids comfortable at the elementary level as far as not being scared when we're doing the drills, but that really has to be balanced, because as we're watching as they're doing these drills, they know it's a drill, and so they're not really moving sometimes with a sense of purpose or urgency. So that's where it becomes important to, after the drill is over, to talk with your response team and think, okay, what did we see here, and then get those comments and tweaks back out to the staff so we can perfect and improve on our processes.
One of the drills that was not included, what we just talked about, we also require AED drills. We actually had 2 saves. We've saved 2 lives this year in our campuses. One on campus is up here, and Dr. Junn's campus is saved a student's life this year with AEDs. So. Moving on, next section is going to be, by law, we're required to do safety and security audits. We are required to do every campus within every 3 years. So we're actually do 1 zone a year. We're finishing up our 3-year cycle this year. And part of that also is walking the building, checking doors, checking to see, and we're talking with the principals to see their concerns. We do nighttime walks to check lighting conditions. Part of that is working with our law enforcement partners and doing an intruder assessment, where they send a plainclothes officer to our school, and we give them permission to try to get in. They are very creative. We want to see our weak spots so that we can address them. Sometimes they look for open doors or windows. Sometimes they try to knock to see if a child will let them in. Usually they can't get in, and so then they go into the office and create stories to try to see if our office staff are following proper procedures. That's one of our biggest parts of the audit, and we get so much insight into them because, you know, our campuses do a great job, and it's just another way to see how we can improve upon our systems. Do you have anything on intruder assessments, Sean?
You know, and it's about the communication aspect, and we have a lot of moving parts in all of our buildings, and different students and parents that are coming and going. And so you have to balance that customer service and welcoming and helping individuals, but then you still also have to have that safety in the back of your mind about what is allowable, what is not. And so it's that communication with your office staff and your teachers, and then your students about what is acceptable, what is not, what is allowable, what is not. And if you don't have that communication within your staff about the protocols and things, then obviously somewhere something's going to fail.
And I was just going to add, in terms of training the student piece on this particular item as well. You know, I want our students to be welcoming. I want our staff to be, everyone to be welcoming. But you know, one of the things we do train the students on here is not letting people in the door, because it's a very natural instinct when somebody's knocking, you know, and smiling, that you want to say, oh, come on in, you know, and this is a place where you do have to do a really good job of saying, don't let that person in, don't even let me in. It's okay to not do that. Tell them to go around, you know.
It's okay to be just a little rude.
Yes, and so, because we do have a lot of visitors in our building. You know, we're very lucky to be able to have a lot of visitors in our building, but we always want to ask that they come to the front door, and so it is a community training piece. It is a staff training piece, and it's certainly a student training piece for sure, because we want them to be welcoming.
I agree with everything they said. We even have had students at some time, if they see an adult in the building that's not one of our watchdog parents or a PTA person that they recognize, they'll ask them if they have checked in at the office. So it's all about training and letting them know what is allowable and what's not.
So after these audits are conducted, we usually get a very good snapshot of some of the areas that we can improve upon. After our last 3-year cycle, we started seeing the need for some automation, improvements in access control systems, our communication networks, notification systems, and really what we saw was the possibility of creating a system of systems to really help speed up the response, to make sure that all gaps are covered, and that's the projects that we submitted for the upcoming bond election. There's access control features in there that would allow quicker response by first responders, also preventing the need for some students to feel like they need a prop door open to get them out. The communications aspect to it, instead of making a whole bunch of phone calls, we already have one button that if they hit it, it can make automatic notifications, text messages, phone calls, PA announcements, and it's taking all the human steps of doing, 10 things to pressing a button and then getting themselves in a safe location, because they're going to be busy ensuring the students are locked down, safe, and secure, and the quicker they can make notification to 911 and the district, we can start supporting them in their efforts as well. So the other part of that also is we have a lot of blind spots in our elementary schools and middle schools on the outside. And in that bond election on the safety and security items, we're actually putting in a request for a project that provides 360-degree coverage outside for parent pickup locations, bus locations, all of our entryways. We want to know if somebody came in or went out and what direction they went, so that we can provide that to law enforcement if the need arises. We want to be able to see somebody get on or off a bus, and with our new bus provider, they have cameras on the buses. If we have a student who didn't make it home, we're able to pull up those cameras and see if that student got off at which particular bus stop, and be able to provide that to the parent or the police if needed. The technology can really, really assist us, and we're working on developing a system of systems to really make it useful and beneficial. The other thing we're talking about, which we've increased on, and I think every school's using it, is radios. We really try to stay away from cell phones in crisis situations. I know a lot of parents probably call y'all on your cell phones, but when a large event happens, the phones just don't seem to work. They get overloaded with phone calls, and so most of our campuses have gone to radio communications, which is great because we can communicate within the Security Operations Center to any school in the district. If the phones go down, if the cell phones go down, we go back to our mobile radios and use that, as well as put a radio. And then we can also have, we're developing radio interoperability with our neighboring partners in cities and counties. Lastly, we would like to talk about our school resource officers. I think a lot of the folks in the community know that we have school resource officers. It's been growing, and their roles have been very beneficial in our campuses. I'm going to let, we work with them throughout the district, but these folks work with them daily out their campuses, so I think I want to let them talk about their purposes a little bit.
When you drive up to a school and you see a police car out in the parking lot, it carries a certain message, whether it's a positive or a negative message. But if they would, the true message of having the resource officer in our building is just that, it's a resource. This police officer visits classrooms, conducts lessons, helps provide those resources or information to parents and community members and to students that might have questions about how the outside world works, because we all know that inside the school building functions differently than outside the school building. So the resource officer is that great link between the community and the laws and the regulations of a city or municipality or a county, and how it relates to schools. So, our resource officer, yes, is there to keep us safe, provide security, make everybody feel comfortable about being in school, but it's way more than that. It's that resource piece, and I'm glad that's why it's named that way, because they are a valuable resource to those students and those parents that have those questions about how things work.
And I think that it is, especially at the level that I'm serving, I love that our students have the opportunity to build a powerful connection between law enforcement and really young people, and see that relationship can be so very positive. I know that in the community that I serve, that's something that is definitely needed. And so I'm so very thankful that our SRO is able to be on our campus as much as he is. We don't have a full-time SRO. I know that is a goal that we have for our campus, and so I'm thankful that our SRO is as committed as he is to serve as much as he does on our campus. And I do think that it's a positive thing for our kids to be able to see the positive influence he has in their lives and his commitment to our community. So I know that's just, long-term influence that's going to have on their lives is going to be a good thing. And certainly his presence in terms of when we run these drills and when we talk about these, any type of drill we have, whether it be lockdown, whether it be a fire drill, whether it be, the AED drill, all of those pieces, he's able to real-time talk of what that would look like and troubleshoot with me about how we can do things better. And I will tell you, reflecting back on our live AED situation, when that moment happened and when I turned and saw a familiar face in that emergency, that was something I needed that day for sure. And so those relationships are irreplaceable. So I just am very thankful for that part of the law enforcement community for sure.
At the elementary level, we also don't have a full-time SRO. We share one with the middle school and high school, but at Old Settlers, we're fortunate because we actually share a parking lot with the middle school, so that's where he's housed is over at the middle school. So he's been very responsive in the few times that we have needed him, whether it was because parents are parking in the fire zone and blocking dismissal, or he also assisted in our digital citizenship, cyber awareness parent night that we had. So he's very responsive and willing to help us when we need him in those limited times at the elementary level.
So I'm going to improv here because we're done with the slides, but I do want to highlight a couple things. We have 5 cities that provide school resource officers to this district: Highland Village, Flower Mound, Louisville, the Colony, and Carrollton. They do an amazing job and we appreciate them in so many aspects. When we call them, they're always there to support this, Louisville ISD. There's one other partner I want to highlight, and I just saw him in the crowd. I can't believe I see it with all the lights in there, but we talk about lockdowns and fires and stuff like that, but one of the more challenging threats that the school district has to deal with, because you have to understand with a district this size and the amount of mobility that we have students moving for field trips, for sporting events. The National Weather Service is one of the greatest partners I think we have, and they've been more than helpful with giving us the information so that we can make smart decisions to not impact our students and keep them safe if they're moving around, not just in county, but we've got buses going to Waco and Austin, and I think I saw one in Corpus Christi, and it's amazing. And when severe weather, when icy weather is possible, they are on conference calls with all the ISDs, helping us make some critical decisions. And I do want to say thank you to Mark Fox, who's in the crowd, and know that we greatly appreciate you. So I think that covers the main topics. I believe, Josh, we've got some Q&A maybe?
Mic check. Great insight, great remarks. Thank y'all for being here today and for sharing those stories. It's really good to know the good, solid team that we have at Louisville ISD that helps protect our students, protect our kids. So very much appreciate that. We are running a few minutes behind schedule, but I can't let them go without giving you guys an opportunity for some Q&A. Does anyone have any questions for our panelists up on stage at Louisville ISD about anything discussed or anything else in regards to emergency preparedness at schools? We'll get the mic to you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Garrett, I just wondered if you could expand a little bit on the plans for the campuses as it relates to safety. You talked about, especially in the elementary schools and middle schools, providing kind of a more of a 360 view of what goes on as people exit or entrance or exit the campuses. But in addition to that, are there other plans to protect us from crazy events like what happened in Connecticut and those types of things?
One of the larger projects within the proposed bond item is redesigning our entryways. One of the main topics of our audit was the ability for somebody to be able to get in the office easily, and once they're in the office, have multiple avenues into the school. A lot of our high schools previously have gone away from that model, and they create more of a foyer area where they can talk and do business through the window, Raptor in, which is our sex offender check, get a visitor's badge and then get buzzed through the main campus, or if they have a meeting with the principal, get buzzed into the office for that. Most of our elementary schools built in the 90s and 80s were not designed in that way. And so one of the larger items is redesigning that to control access to the office while also providing some ballistic protection of critical areas and entrances. Not just for, you know, the big and the bad that we think about, but that also provides additional protections for storm debris as our kids are sheltering in possibly hallways, or just the random vandalism that we sometimes have where bricks like to come through glass for some reason. But you know, we try to look at it from a broad spectrum of threats, and this solution is really would really eliminate many of those threats. And so, does that answer your question, sir?
Thank you. Any other questions for our partners at Louisville ISD? I guess I have one follow-up question. We talked a lot about it, you talked a lot about systems and facilities and that sort of preparedness, but I'd like to get your insight. Sometimes our children, our students, are the one educating the parents at home about topics such as emergency preparedness or other things. In your schools, what have you seen from a curriculum standpoint, your teachers, in terms of educating students on emergency preparedness?
Let's work down, start at elementary, and then we'll come back this way. Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, that's okay. So let me see if I understand what you're saying. You're asking about student education or parent education, or both?
Both.
Okay. Well, the students, you know, like I said, the drills are at the elementary level are the main education for them. As far as parents, we do communicate to them our campus emergency plan, so that if something was to happen to where they would need to reunify with their children, they know where those areas are, and just trying to educate them as far as if something like that does happen, to please follow.
We're getting the same communication to everyone at that point, and I think that's, you know, it's consistent. And so in terms of parent education, I think that you can't replace that. So,
And you know, it's not a one-time deal. We start school in August, and we tell the kids where to go and how to operate, and then it's it. No, we constantly do it, like we said, month after month, but even so on our campus, I'll send reminders a couple of times a month. Hey, take the first 10 minutes of class today to reteach your evacuation routes, where you're going, where you're going to take cover, the different procedures. So we keep that on the front burner with all the staff members, because if you teach it once, you're going to have to reteach it. You're going to have different students. You're going to have students coming and going out of your classroom. So it's that monthly reminder on how to operate under situations.
And I'll answer it with just a quick story, because I've got a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old, both in LISD schools. And I always enjoy, last week when the storms were rolling through and I had my family moving into the bathroom, my son was explaining the proper safety procedures of the tornado that he learned in school. And he also informed me that a tornado is not a tornado until it touches the ground. He said, "Where did you learn that?" In science. I said, "Awesome. Thought about you, Mark." I did. And then, you know, when my 3-year-old tells me this is how we duck and cover. And they're learning that at Lily Jackson, and I think that's amazing stuff. And so the messages that we're teaching them, they do it on their own. They teach their parents, they talk about it, and I hear about the drills, and it makes me happy because, you know, they're understanding of it, so.
That's great. Thank you. Kudos to you and your staff for sharing that message and teaching our children that important message there. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Yeah. We'll bring a mic to you. I thought about jumping off the stage and handing you mine, but that would probably be pretty disastrous.
Okay, my question is this. In the case of a lockdown, what should parents and folks at home that have a teacher or a substitute teacher in the school do, as far as information and as far as not messing up your whatever you have to do during the lockdown, but still get the information that they need.
The beautiful thing about our district and our emergency organization is that as soon as a school goes into a lockdown mode, the communication office, working with Matt Garrett and his team, instantly get information out to the public through different means, whether that's a call out, social media, and in many times, sometimes that lockdown is a real deal. Maybe it's not quite a hard and fast threat, but maybe it's a soft warning. But in any cases, the police are involved. We surrender control of our building basically to the police and the emergency team, to Matt Garrett's team. And so that communication piece happens from the district almost instantly.
And then I would just say, by extension, if you were planning to come to campus, don't. And then, if you ever come to campus and you can't get in any of the doors for some reason, I would just go back to your car and leave. And then, certainly we have had situations where we go into lockdown when there's a parent or a guest on campus, and they lock down with us. And that they become part of our family for a little while. That is always a surprising thing for them, but we certainly make them as comfortable as possible.
And no matter what, even though we say don't do it, we are expecting parents to show up, and so there are plans in place, and law enforcement, that's an expectation. They are already anticipating having a crowd control issue, and those procedures are going to be addressed.
Thank you. Any other questions? I just wanted to add one more thing about this team. 6-7 years ago, I met Mr. Garrett. I'm not sure if you even worked for us at that time. I can't remember what the timing was. But this just shows a kind of a progression in what we're trying to do in public schools. And so we're very proud of the team that Mr. Garrett's built, which is an extended team with our communities. Josh, the folks like yourself, the school resource officers, all that's combined. And really, we get teachers that will reach out to the board or actually spouses saying, hey, I'll pay for ballistic glass in the front of the school, or I'll pay for a door lock for my wife's classroom. And so we'll go to conferences as a school board, and all the vendors are there talking about that, and we send those back to Matt. And I just want to put an exclamation mark on the fact that we're always looking at not just campus safety and campus procedures, but things that we can do to secure a classroom for active shooters. But I think when you look at kind of what we're going to do in our front entrances, should the voters agree to that, there'll be quite a few things. And I think Camey Elementary is an example, right, where we've already hardened that campus. And it's important that, I think a lot of people don't realize the amount of work that goes into what happens here. And I would say, Matt, I'd open the invite for people that want to go see the emergency center, which I've seen myself. Just a great opportunity to see what actually goes on. This is something that a lot of people just don't know, that Mr. Garrett and his team exist. And I guess that's a good thing. But very proud of what they do. The other thing I would say is you don't hear us talk a lot about this in public, in board meetings, when Mr. Garrett does a quarterly presentation. That's by design. We don't want to play our cards for the public, and I couldn't be prouder of the panel, and as all of you know, and what you all are doing to really keep our kids and our staff safe. Thank you.
Thank you. I have time for one more question if anybody has it. Yes, ma'am. Bring the mic to you.
Hi, I'm a root of the cause kind of mom. I wonder if in your curriculum you have any things that address, the sorts of things that can that can lead up to these kinds of situations that make you need ballistic glass, that led to Connecticut. Do you have anger management kind of things? Do you teach kind of appropriate responses to your kids and stuff so you don't get to that situation?
Yes, the state actually mandates that we teach what we call a pause curriculum. I guessing that it's PAWS curriculum. I don't know if we just call it PAWS curriculum or if it's the statewide name, but we actually teach that. Every campus in the district does. It's embedded into what we do every month, every week, and it certainly does talk about a whole series of, I would say, social emotional health items, including things like what you're talking about. So we definitely address the whole child as a part of what we do as educators, and you know, anger management is not, it's just a piece of that puzzle, certainly, but absolutely, that is a state mandated item that we address as a part of what we do, for sure.
Great. If you guys will join me in giving these guys a round of applause. Thank you all. As they are walking on stage here, next up in the program, if you'll see if you have a program in front of you, is our friends at the Denton Fire Department who have a performance they want to share with you.
Hey, good morning. I'm Charlie Stink. I'm a captain with the Denton Fire Department. Usually I'd be up here in uniform and talking all professional, but they wanted us to come up here and do some of our comedy stuff and some of our songs that we do in our town to get some message across. So the first thing we have for you this morning is our disaster song. I brought CJ with me, and I'm Tater. My character's name's Tater. So we'll turn it over to CJ. We'll sing a song for you guys. How y'all doing? We really need to change the title of that song from Disaster Song, don't we? The worst title ever. This is about women, okay? Y'all ready? I'm out on the town, rain coming down, the wind is starting to blow. Won't go far, get out of my car, and into the building I'll go. Turn on the radio, the stereo, and listen to the weather broadcast. Then I can be sure that I'm safe and secure, waiting for that storm to pass. We get down in low places when the sirens sound. We cover our faces till this away, and we'll be okay. We make plans for bad weather, have an emergency kit. All together now we get down in low places. Blame it on the wind, I just can't pretend the storm, it will quickly pass. Rain's getting harder, clouds getting darker, the streets they're flooding real fast. I saw a surprise and fear in your eyes when the siren it started to sound. Then we went inside and we started to hide before that tornado touched down. We get down in low places when the sirens sound. We cover our faces till it's away, and we'll be okay. We make plans for bad weather, have an emergency kit. All together now we get down in low places. We get down in low places. Thank you very much. What do you guys like to do with the little skit and the little song?
How about that? Was that great or what? I think that record has a definite chance of going platinum. I don't know, what do y'all think? So next up on the program, we're going to have Eric Hutmacher. He's the Emergency Management Specialist for the City of Louisville Office of Emergency Management. And what he's going to talk to you about is how the city is prepared and some possibly some things you can do as well to be prepared yourselves. So come on up, Eric. And I think you have a slideshow as well. We can pull that up.
Mic check. All right. Well, that's a tough act to follow. Really like that song. My name is Eric Hutmacher, and I am the Emergency Management Specialist for the City of Louisville. And we'll be going over some of the things that y'all can do for emergency preparedness, as well as a little bit about what Louisville does in the realm of emergency management, what we do to keep the city safe, that sort of thing. I had the instructions upside down. It's my fault. All right. So, y'all ever heard of a gentleman called Noah, named Noah? All right. Well, he was the world's first emergency manager. Mitigation, preparation, response, and recovery. He did it all. So, he had on good authority that it was going to rain for 40 days and 40 nights. And he thought to himself, okay, I'm going to need to do some preparedness efforts here, right? So he got to work building this ark here, and while he was doing that, he was starting to think, well, if it's going to rain for 40 days and 40 nights and flood a lot, there's going to be a lot of critters that are going to not make it. So I need to mitigate some of the damage that's going to happen to that environment. So he started getting 2 of each kind, loading them up there, and then it starts raining. So then he kind of goes into that response phase where he's out there handling the heavy seas and making sure all the critters are getting taken care of and that they're holding their own up there. And well, water comes down and you know he gets the signal that okay, all right, it's safe to unload everybody, and then he starts that recovery phase. So he went through it all and was successful, as we can all see, and that's why Noah was the first world's emergency manager. So in case anyone asks what emergency management is, you just tell them about that story. All right, so the emergency program defined. We are the managerial function in the framework within which our community reduces vulnerability to hazards and copes with disaster. And there's some of our, we have legal authorities that we operate under. So that's kind of what gives us the ability to declare a disaster if need be. So our mission of emergency management is to coordinate efforts to build, sustain, improve Louisville's capacity to prevent, mitigate, prepare for, respond to, and recover from disaster. We are really as busy as that statement says right there. We work constantly in times of non-disaster. We do a lot of admin work and planning and preparation. Again, kind of going back to that Noah story there. And then, of course, when we have severe weather, we are monitoring and, if need be, response and recovery. There's some of our priorities right there. Of course, the first one is save lives. We want to protect from injury, minimize property damage and economic loss, protect the environment, and then when it's all said and done, you want to elevate the community to a state before the disaster, but you also want to get you to a level that was better than before. If you're at that state where you were just at when you were affected by the disaster, you're only going to be affected by it again. So you want to try to get ahead of it next time. There is our OEM staff right there, Office of Emergency Management staff. My wonderful boss, Josh Roberts, the Emergency Management Coordinator, and me, Eric Hutmacher, the Emergency Management Specialist.
Nice work on that raise, Hutmacher.
All right. So we have key program elements that we operate on. And what we have right here are 2 full-time staff members, and we have other funded programs such as our outdoor warning system, our emergency notification system, our Council of Government dues and membership. We have some Council of Government folks here. They're real fine people, and they help coordinate many things, grant programs, preparedness efforts on a regional scale. And as you'll hear about a little later, a very large regional exercise we had called the Big X, which involved multiple counties, multiple departments, Really big stuff, big deal. So that helped us out a lot. We have one staff vehicle, and we have one EOC in a box that is towed by that vehicle. And then we have overhead supplies, operating materials, things that allow us to do our job, monitor weather, you know, talk to storm spotters, stuff like that. And of course, professional development. All right, so if y'all lived in Louisville in 2015, y'all know we had a busy year. Here's some of the pictures of the events that we were affected by. We had 2 major disaster declarations in the summer of 2015, storms and floods, and we had 2 tornado warnings. We had 3 EOC activations, 11 field responses, and 8 emergency assists. So we have the Mother's Day storm there, we have the Denton Creek flood at the mobile home park right there, and then we had the, I believe it was around 30,000 cubic feet per second going over that uncontrolled spillway along Business 121. Another key element is emergency plans. Emergency plans not only allow us to kind of think through some of our response and recovery efforts as well, but they also help us, you get grant funding for certain kinds of plans that are certified by the state and the federal government. So we rely on that. We've done a lot of the Urban Area Security Initiative grants, as well as flood mitigation assistance grants to help some folks out. So some of those plans are the emergency management plan. That is the overall operational plan that we have. It's at the advanced level. It's the highest level you can get, and it is certified by the state. We also have our hazard mitigation action plan. That allows us to get, again, some grant funds, the hazard mitigation grant program, and also it helps you think through some of the threats that you can mitigate for, such as severe weather or flooding, even drought. We also have a continuity of operations plan. That is, what can we do to keep functioning as a city? The city has to do certain things no matter what. And that would be providing utility services, you know, getting folks out there to make sure the streets are clear, things like that. How are we going to operate on that, should we be affected? Sometimes the example I like to use for that continuity of operations is either a pandemic or an ice storm. So everything is working, all the utilities are working just fine, you just don't have the folks to run it, or you are on a smaller staff for that reason. And then we have our hazard vulnerability analysis that goes through the community and the threats that can affect that community. That's very helpful. And we also have incident action plans as well as standard operating guidance. Another element is training and exercise. Here's some of the training, exercise, and real-world events, because that also gets you that experience and lets you know how you're going to operate in the event of a disaster, of course. But we always make sure that we have an exercise to take part in, whether that's tabletop, walking through something. Another example of that would be, we have extreme heat that'll be coming up in a couple of months, or in the winter weather. What we do is we get the departments together and we say, all right, let's talk through how we're going to approach this season. Our good friends at the National Weather Service said this summer's supposed to be really hot, or this winter's supposed to be really cold, and we have a better chance for that winter weather to affect us. What are we going to do about it? And then the whole city is now on the same page, firing on all cylinders, and we got everything going. All right, I mentioned grants a little bit earlier. Grants are the fun stuff, right? The grants get us the stuff we really need, like that rehab unit for Louisville, the fire department. What that allows the firefighters to do is to rehabilitate if they get too hot or too cold, depending on the time of year. And we really need one. So that Urban Area Security Initiative grant helped us out quite a bit. We also have the Emergency Management Performance Grant. That is what keeps me around. And it's a good grant, and again, it allows a municipality to get the things they need, whether it's another person, or a rehab unit, or extra radios. So stuff that we need to operate and keep the city safe, these grants allow us to do that. Hazard mitigation assistance grants will help you do things like, let's say there's a major disaster declaration in the state of Texas, and let's say your culvert got washed out. Well, you can write a grant to replace that culvert, and that way it kind of minimizes the impact on the taxpayers for your municipality. Another program element, emergency warning. We have our outdoor warning system, sirens, and then we have our emergency management, or emergency notification system. We have Everbridge, the guys we use, and they are They're really, that's the text, phone call, email that you get when we have a severe thunderstorm warning, tornado warning. However, you have your Louisville Citizens Alert, and I hope you all are all signed up. We'll touch base on that later. But that's what will warn you in the event of severe weather or another emergency. And then we also have the outdoor warning sirens, which we will discuss a little bit later on. Oh, great question. And if y'all have any questions, feel free to shout them out. I'm informal on that. So, but the question was, what are these circles? These circles are locations of sirens and the radius at which, if you are outside, you can hear the sirens. Because of course it's an outdoor warning system. You have to be outside. That's how they're intended by the manufacturer. But that is where they are at in the city. And going into some of the criteria for operating an outdoor warning system activation, we look at winds of 70 miles an hour or higher. And this is from our good folks at the National Weather Service, Storm Spotters. We all work, we have an integrated warning team that meets once a year at the beginning of severe weather season, and it's very helpful. Oh, yes, sir?
On your last slide, I noticed in the upper right corner, everything else seems to be fairly well overlapped, except that upper right one. Isn't that going to cause a problem if somebody happens to be not in one of those overlapping areas?
Absolutely, and we have a plan to minimize all that. In fact, we have one that's being installed currently.
Yeah, one up in the northeast part of town is going to be installed in a few weeks. That area has been subject to lots of development over the past few years, so we're installing a siren in that location where you see that gap right now.
In operating those outdoor warning sirens, here's our criteria here. Winds in excess of 70 miles an hour, destructive hail, an inch and a quarter or larger. And then, of course, if there's a tornado warning issued for Denton County that may impact the city of Louisville, there could also be hazardous chemical situations and other emergencies as deemed necessary. We do test our outdoor warning system the first Wednesday of every month, weather permitting, at 1 p.m. Yes, ma'am?
Are there different signals for tornado versus, are there different tones? And also, what was the criteria for activation last week?
So there's not a different tone that we use. We just use the one that we're all familiar with. And then as far as the criteria from last week, it was an odd situation. We did not have a tornado warning, and the data that we had, you're talking about early Wednesday morning? Yes, ma'am. We did not have a tornado warning for our city, and the data we had at the time was winds sustained around 45, 50 miles an hour, not close to 70, and Mother Nature she snuck a tornado in that squall line is unfortunately what happened.
And if I can address it, the activation criteria doesn't change. If we're in a tornado-warned area, or if we visibly can confirm from a trusted agent, a spotter, public safety personnel, etc., that a tornado is making its way, then that's a criteria to activate. If we're in a severe thunderstorm warning and we're experiencing wind gusts of 70, 75 miles an hour or greater, or if we have hail, especially in the daytime when we have outdoor events going on of an inch and a quarter, inch and a half or greater, we certainly activate then. This past Wednesday, the recent storms, none of those criteria were observed as that line of storms made its way from west to east. In spite of the tremendous improvements we've had in warning systems and detecting severe weather danger in terms of operational meteorology during these events, at the end of the day, Mother Nature can still surprise, unfortunately, and that's what happened. We're always grateful when there are no injuries, and there weren't any injuries in that event, but we're certainly grateful for that.
Well, we heard it, so what activated it?
You likely heard flower mounds, sirens, various things influence the way sound propagates, and especially as we have that storm moving from west to east at about 40, 45 miles an hour, that's going to carry that sound that's going to travel a little bit farther into Louisville. And I don't know where you live, but I would guess maybe it's right on the line shore. They were in a warned area. Louisville was not. The warned area was west of Louisville. So that's likely what you heard. We have one other question, and then after this, I'll let Eric wrap up his slides, and we'll save a minute or two after for Q&A. We'll go ahead, Tracy, with your question.
Eric, this is great stuff. I really appreciate it. It's very enlightening. So I live in Highland Village, and we received 2 notifications. So I think to the lady's question, kind of similar. You know, you get this depending on wind direction, which town, and I think all of our alerts started with there's a tornado in Justin, and I guess in talking to the police chief, what Highland Village did was they did a warning of a warning. So the first alarm, first siren that went off was an indication of, hey, everybody look at your phones. That was the intent because you're at restaurants, etc. The second one was the actual warning. Is that a standard procedure? Again, I'm not picking on Highland Village because I live there, but do you do something similar to that?
Good question. No, sir, we don't do that. That's nothing that's standard across communities, and that's not in our regional guidelines that every community sort of adopts or abides by. But there's also a tremendous amount, and there should be, in discretion for that individual community. They know the history of storms in their community, the behaviors that might occur in that community. So it's always the discretion of that individual community that, in terms of activation, but that's not standard in ours. No, sir. Eric, if you'll go ahead and wrap through the slides.
Absolutely. All right, and of course, public education, kind of what we're doing now, also social media. It helps us get word out about great events such as this, and also we have severe storm messaging that goes out during that time. All right, spring means severe weather in Texas. So most severe weather occurs from March through early June. Most severe weather occurs during the late afternoon and evening, but severe weather can occur at any time. There's an example there of a severe thunderstorm warning for City of Louisville. And when you're in that little polygon there, that's how you know you're in the warning, and that's when our emergency notification systems will alert. Outdoor warning system. When sirens sound, seek shelter and seek information. You're supposed to go inside, turn the TV on, turn the radio on, get that information like we're doing. We go inside, we get the operations center going, and we're getting information. Y'all should do the same thing too. Have your own little emergency operations center there and respond for your team, your family.
Eric, if I may, on this slide, you see the blue range rings. That's Flower Mound, and the purple are Louisville. And these range rings are just sort of general rules of thumbs in terms of the sound coverage area of that particular siren. So you see, we have sirens that folks in Flower Mound will hear, and Flower Mound has sirens that our folks will likely hear. So to address the lady's question earlier.
Correct, and that's why we try to operate on those common criteria. So, you know, we're all on the same page as far as emergency managers go. Alrighty, an example of a siren next to one of our schools here. And again, locations of them and where there are corresponding numbers in our system. All right, Louisville Citizen Alert. Y'all should all be signed up if y'all are Louisville citizens. And we update the database. We make sure that folks are warned of a severe weather or any other threats through the system. And there's an example of our database contacts. And again, a little bit more of the public education side of things. You want to make sure that you are weather aware. So in the morning, check the National Weather Service website. And if you're going for a picnic or a camping trip or something, be even more aware and make sure that it's going to be safe outdoors for you. Want to make sure that you have multiple ways of receiving warnings. There is a weather radio right there. We have mobile phones, applications for those. And then, of course, Louisville Citizens Alert, or another emergency notification system for your municipality or county. All right, tornado safety at home or work. Underground is best. If no underground, shelter, get to a small interior, windowless room, lowest floor if possible. Closets and bathrooms are good because there's usually no windows. Cover yourself with blankets or a mattress. All right, tornado safety in vehicles. Sorry, folks, I want to get this over with before that hook comes and gets me. Abandoned vehicles for a substantial building. Cars can be easily tossed about by tornadoes. That's why the National Weather Service says get to an interior windowless room, because don't think about just bricks and limbs flying through the air. Think about a car. That will make it through that exterior wall of your house. As a last resort, take cover in a culvert or ditch, but this is not as safe as a solid building. Highway overpasses, not a safe place to take shelter. Winds and debris can be funneled underneath the overpass. In the best case, they offer only limited shelter, and you are exposed and raising your elevation. So the physics side of it, of course, is it creates venturi. It's like putting your thumb over a garden hose when you're spraying your brother or sister. It goes further when you put your thumb over it. You're concentrating that into a small area, makes it go faster. And it also creates traffic congestion problems when you try to hide under an overpass, so don't do that. Tornado safety in mobile homes. They can be a good low-cost option for a home. They are unsafe in a tornado or high wind event. Even if they're anchored, you still want to make sure that you're taking precautions and either getting to another building reinforcement or even a low-lying area if possible. And do we have time for a question or two?
Do we have a question for Eric or myself for the City of Louisville Office of Emergency Management? Yes, ma'am. We'll bring a mic to you.
With an event like last Wednesday with the tornado that snuck in, how do you take precautions with an event where it comes unexpectedly? How do you take control of that situation?
The first thing is always be weather aware. That's sort of a tagline we like to use, but especially during times where the Weather Service or your favorite broadcast meteorologist is anticipating or forecasting severe weather in the overnight hours, please take responsibility to really pay attention to that. And Eric showed a slide. It's important to have multiple ways to receive a warning indoors because there's no one warning tool that will work for every person in every situation. And technology, whether we like it or not, sometimes has limitations. So it's always important to have that built-in redundancy to prepare yourself, your family, and your household. Always be weather aware.
Thank you.
Good question. Any other questions? We have one right here.
I live on the edge of the Flower Mound, Louisville border, and I'm on the Flower Mound side. Do you know if they have a comparable setup in Flower Mound?
Yes. They do. Yep. They have sirens as well as an emergency notification system. You go on the fire department's website, the Flower Mound Fire Department's website, you can find instructions on how to receive alerts to your phone, email, text message, etc. Yes, sir.
Good. And we have one more question right there.
One more, and then we'll go to the next item in our program.
Yeah, I don't want that trap door to...
I used to receive alerts on my phone every time the storm was close to our home, and I don't receive that anymore. I must have been dropped off the grid. How do I get it?
Call our office, 972-219-5089.
I don't remember that.
Sure, I'll repeat it. 972-219-5089. And we'll, on the back end side of the system, search your record and we'll see. Sometimes it's just a case-by-case kind of review to see what's happened, but we'll make sure and get you squared away. So thank you, Eric. Please join me in thanking Eric for his presentation. And as we transition, we'll have our good friends from the Denton Fire Department do another performance for you.
This one takes a little more setup. All right. And we're ready. You ready? Woo. Hey, let's talk about a little bit about weather safety now. You want to talk about some weather safety? Whether to be safe or not, that's easy. I'm going to be safe every time. Now, we should always be safe. No, I'm talking about weather safety. You know, this is the time of year in North Texas where, you know, there's big storms. You got to have a plan for that. Have an emergency plan. Emergency plan. Yeah, hey, I have a plan right here. When it starts raining outside, I'm just going to get my umbrella to safety out. Wait a minute. What are you going to do with that little thing? No, it keeps me dry. No, I'm talking about a bigger storm than that. Oh, bigger storm. I've got a bigger umbrella of safety. No. That's not going to do you any good. I'm talking about this is the time of year where there's big tornadoes. I got my jumbo umbrella of safety.
No.
Hey, keep us both dry. Look at that.
No, put that up. Put that up. Okay, get out from under there. No, you know, you have to have an emergency plan. You know, when you start to have them tornado warnings and thunderstorm warnings, you need to have a plan ready, you know, to do something, okay? Yeah, you know, the first thing is you need to have an emergency room. Do you have an emergency room you go to?
Emergency room.
Yeah, you know, emergency room is usually an interior room, you know, preferably without any windows.
Hey, I have a bathroom in the middle of my house.
You know, a bathroom, that makes a perfect emergency room. That's a good one, yeah. That'd be a good one to use. And you know what you should have in that room?
I do. I have it. Just a little of this little.
No. Put that up. No. I'm talking about you should have an emergency kit. Do you have an emergency kit?
Well, my girlfriend says this is the emergency kit I need in the bathroom.
No. Put that up. No. An emergency kit. You gotta have an emergency kit.
Hey, check this out. This helps me in some emergencies.
Okay, wait a minute. What is that gonna do?
Oh, wait, look at this. Look what I have in here.
Okay, wait a minute. You have a suitcase inside of a suitcase inside of a suitcase inside of a suitcase.
Genius, right?
What problem is that going to solve? That's not going to.
Well, I travel a lot, and so when I fly, the airlines like to charge us baggage fees. But when I use this bag, they think it's just one bag.
No.
Disaster averted.
No. Here, put that away. No, you need to make yourself an emergency kit, okay? So let's make an emergency kit. Do you have one? You didn't have one, did you?
I don't have one of those.
Okay, the first thing you need is something to put it in, okay? That could be like a box like that, or, you know, even some kind of a bag. You know, a gym bag makes a good
Tupperware box.
Yeah, just like that. So anyway, you can have that right there to have that done. Anyway, let's see. Oh, you know what that is right there, don't you?
Hey, look at that. It's a little radio.
That's right. You know what that radio is for, right?
That's right, because if there's a big disaster and we're hunkered down in our bathroom, that's our safe room, we can listen to our jams.
No, it's not to listen to jams. It's to listen to, you know, like emergency alerts on the radio.
Hey, this one says it has a weather band.
Well, you know, that's an emergency radio right there, weather radio. But you don't have to have that. You know, any small portable radio will do.
Hey, look, this one has a little crank on it.
That's right. And, you know, but if it doesn't have that, any kind of radio you use or anything, you need to have extra batteries in there for it too, okay? You don't know how long this disaster is going to last, okay? Oh, the next thing is, you know, we're not going to necessarily keep it in there, is a cell phone. Do you have a cell phone?
Cell phone.
Yeah.
I think my cell phone's over there.
Oh, here. You got a cell phone right here.
Hey, that's right.
You know why you need a cell phone, right?
That's right, because when that big storm runs through and we're hunkered down in our safe room, it's a great time to play Tetris and catch up on Facebook, maybe do some Instagram posts about the storm.
No, you don't want to waste your battery on those things. You don't know how long this disaster is going to last. You need to conserve your battery. You know, that's just for calling for help, calling 911, things like that.
Oh, okay. So if I need help, I use it, but I save the battery for everything else.
That's right. You know, one thing you can use, and a lot of people don't know, the city of Denton has a thing called Code Red. You can go to the website and sign up. That'll send you text alerts to your specific area about weather updates right there.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And I heard in Louisville they have Everbridge, right? Got the Everbridge system. So you don't use that thing. It's a good thing to have.
I'll sign up as soon as the program's over.
Okay, so we got our phone, but you know that brings up another good thing is a contact list. You know, do you know anybody's number anymore?
Hey, yeah, whose number do you need? I have it right here in the phone.
Well, see, that's what I was talking about right there. Nobody remembers phone numbers anymore. We keep them all on our phones. So it's a good idea to have a contact list.
Yeah, that is a good idea in case I lose my phone.
That's right, in case your phone gets lost or broken or the power goes out. You know, if you borrow somebody's phone, you have a contact list with all your numbers that you need,
Hey,
right?
look at that. That's all your family members, even the ones that are out of state.
That's right. See, so you know, have that in there too. So if something happens, you got
Contact list.
Okay, moving back to the deal right here. Do you have any water?
Oh, yeah, hang on, right here.
Here, hold this. What are you doing there? I don't understand what you're doing. Okay, come back over here. You want to watch me? Wait. Hey, come on. Oh, come on now. What are you doing? This seems slightly unsanitary here. Huh? Okay, stop. What are you? Oh, come on now. Oh, please. Okay, come over here. Okay, stop. What is this supposed
can't understand you anymore. Okay, get rid of that water. Now, come on! What are you doing?
I was getting some water for our emergency kit. Look at this. Zip tie that down there like that. And then it packs nice and neat down there.
No, not water like that. It's a good idea to have a towel too, you know. No, not water like that. An easy thing to do is have you some bottled water like that there.
Yeah, that might work too.
Yeah, have yourself enough water for you or your family to get by for a couple of days. You don't know how long this disaster is going to last, do you?
That's a good idea.
Okay, along with the water, the next thing you need here is non-perishable food, okay? Have yourself some non-perishable food in there, so if a disaster you need to eat, you have...
That's a really good idea, see, Gary?
What are
Non-perishable food in our kit.
What are you doing? You're not supposed to eat that food. That goes in our emergency kit.
Oh, no, I was gonna put this in the kitchen. I was gonna save it in case there's a disaster later. I was just gonna put that down.
Okay, that reminds me, this brings up another thing. Non-perishable food in the emergency kit, be sure to remember and tell your family, stay out of it. You need to have it in there if there's some kind of emergency or disaster. Okay. All right, let's see. The next thing here is, you know, a lot of times these things happen at night, right? You might lose the power and you can't see where you're at, so a good idea is have one of those.
Use that little flashlight.
Yeah, you know, have a flashlight, have a couple of them in there. And like I said, if it takes batteries, have some extra batteries in there to use too, right? Okay. Oh, you know, another thing you can think of, maybe you're like me and you wear glasses, right? You know, what are you going to do if you forget your glasses, your glasses get lost, or they get broken? You know, have yourself an extra pair of prescription glasses in there. You know? So, what are you doing there? Well, wait, what is that supposed to be?
They're my glasses. They're prescription.
Put that away.
Hey, come on, it's my sight gag.
No, put that away. But you know, those did bring up a good point, you know. Maybe you're a diabetic or epileptic. Maybe there's some medication you have to have every day. You know, put some extra, medication in there to get you past a few days, and an extra pair of glasses like that.
That's why I have these. I have my Xarelto and my Lipitor right here.
Okay, yeah, so put those in there. Okay, let's see. Let's go back over what we got. Now, people, this right here, you can make it up your own. This is just giving you a basic idea, what to put in an emergency kit. It's always a good idea to have the water and the food. But, kind of make it your own, what you think that you need. So,
some people put photos in it of their family members.
That's true. So anyway, let's go over what we got. First thing is
look at that, that's a radio. Not to listen to our jams, but to listen to weather updates so we know when the storm is past.
That's right. Another thing that you're not really going to carry in this, but you need to have it for emergency is your cell phone.
A fully charged cell phone. Not to do Facebook updates, but to call 911 if you have emergencies, if you're trapped.
That's right. And remember, if something happens to your phone and you don't remember your numbers, have yourself a contact list.
That's right. Of all of our family members, so we can call them with updates whenever we get to a working phone.
That's right. Next thing is the water. Real important.
Enough water lasts each of your family members a couple of days until the storm passes and services get back on.
So non-perishable food.
Non-perishable means it doesn't need to be refrigerated and it won't spoil.
And remember, if this disaster emergency happens at night, be sure to have a flashlight.
Flashlight with spare batteries.
And if you're like me, you wear glasses, have yourself an extra pair in there, along with some medications if it's something that's really important you have to have daily, right?
That's right.
That's right. Oh, and so that brings up our meeting place. So part of our plan so far is we have a safe room, which we use the bathroom in the interior room. We have an emergency kit in there to get by for a few days, making sure that we have our phone.
Right.
Last thing we need is a meeting place, right? You have a meeting place for your family?
Oh, that's right. My whole family knows if anything happens at our house, we're meeting at the mailbox. That's our meeting place.
Okay. What if a tornado comes through and your mailbox isn't there anymore? Maybe your house isn't even there anymore. You gotta have some big place.
You're gonna need a bigger mailbox.
No, you need a bigger meeting place.
Hey, what about the post office? That's a big mailbox.
Post office is a good idea. Any kind of big civic building, a school, a post office.
My family goes to church.
The church is really good. So when you have your plan, sit your family down and talk to them. Say, if we get separated or if you're coming home and you can't get to that area,
you just meet at the church.
Everybody knows to meet at the church and see if they show up safe. So you think you got it all good now?
I got it all good now.
All right, well, thanks for your time, folks. We'll be back in a little bit, okay?
Well, I can say as an emergency manager, it makes me quite proud their disaster kit. That's one heck of a kit. Thanks, guys.
You bet.
Next up on the program, we've got our friends and partners at the North Central Texas Council of Governments. Tonda Henry is going to come up and she's going to talk to you all about the recent Big X. The Big X was a multi-jurisdictional, multiple location, full-scale exercise that we conducted as a region recently. Tonda, did you have any slides?
No, but I do have a video that I'll show about a little ways after it started.
Okay, gotcha.
Good morning, everyone. I am Tonda Henry with the North Central Texas Council of Governments Department of Emergency Preparedness. Today I'll be talking about our recent regional full-scale exercise that took place November 11th through the 13th. But before I get started, I'll give you a little bit of background of what the North Central Texas Council of Governments is, because probably you don't know about it. I know I didn't until I started working there. So the Council of Governments is a political subdivision of the state of Texas, and it is a voluntary association of, by, and for local governments. Well, that sounds great, but what does that actually mean? So the Council of Governments was established to assist the local governments, such as our counties, our cities, and our special districts like schools, in planning for common needs, to address things that can happen across our jurisdictional lines, and to cooperate for mutual benefit. The Council of Governments serves the 16 counties in north central Texas, and we have over 230 member governments. The Department of Emergency Preparedness was established in 2002 as a direct result of the 9/11 terror attacks. That's happened after regional leaders and elected officials saw a need for a coordinated regional effort to address disasters and emergency incidents across the region, and to prepare for and try to prevent any terrorist incidents from affecting us. The Emergency Preparedness Department brings together public safety professionals across our region to collaborate, plan, train, and work together in order to prepare for any type of disaster that can affect us, and any sort of disaster that can cross regional jurisdictional lines, to build a safer, more resilient community. Because as we know, tornadoes, floods, any sort of man-made disaster, that doesn't stop at our city or county lines. So it's important that we work together as regional partners to address this. So we do that by helping our emergency responders get the training and the tools that they need to prepare for these type of incidents. And this is where the Big X comes in. So, as Josh touched on, this was a 3-day, multi-jurisdictional, multifunctional emergency response exercise that brought our responders together to practice their skills in a variety of different complex scenarios, such as natural disasters, hazardous incidents, and terrorist attacks. So I don't get this wrong, I wrote this down. Over the 3 days, we had 9 different disciplines, ranging from everything from SWAT, hazmat, urban search and rescue, community emergency response teams. We had hospitals come out. We had a plethora of different emergency response functions. Of those 9 disciplines, we had 104 different teams that came from 61 cities, 9 counties, and 4 special districts, such as the DFW Airport and 3 of our hospitals. This happened at 36 different venues across the Metroplex, over 41 total scenarios. So I have a video to show you guys, and you're lucky, you'll be the first audience to actually see our brand new Big X 2016 video to kind of highlight what happened. So if we can get that.
Veterans Day weekend 2016, the North Central Texas Council of Governments hosted a 3-day exercise to enhance the region's ability to respond to and manage natural and human-caused disasters. More than 2,500 individuals in 36 different locations participated, including personnel from 11 emergency operations centers and response teams from SWAT, EOD, Hazmat, USAR, CERT, Wildland Fire, Communications, and Health and Medical Services.
This is a whole of the community kind of partnership. The sum is greater than its parts, and it takes all of us coming together to be able to keep our first responders safer and I think eventually save a life.
Local, state, and federal agencies, volunteer and private sector, and community partners all played a role, making Big X 2016 larger both in number of venues and number of participants and more complex than any regional exercise conducted previously. The exercise scenario incorporated multiple emergency themes, including a complex coordinated terrorist attack, multiple tornado touchdowns, an outbreak of pandemic influenza, and a wildfire. Exercise planners used Simulation Deck to share scenario information with the players through realistic, real-time news stories, social media posts, and other simulated internet content.
For the Big X, we're really focused on exercise integrity and to make sure that our scenarios are really as realistic as we can possibly get.
Simulation Deck was brought in for the Big X exercise so that the players could learn how to deal with social media and understand what it's like to deal with the media during crisis.
So having the newsreels and the tweets come in and those kind of things that really would drive any kind of decision making or anything like that at that lower level, an emergency management coordinator or the EOC helps those folks practice making decisions over and over. So in the real event, they'll be a lot more comfortable dealing with whatever it is that might be coming in.
Well, what Simulation Deck did for them is that it helped them understand why it is so important to monitor social media in a safe environment where they can practice and not have any repercussion of real-world problems.
SimDeck allowed us to provide a degree of realism that they probably wouldn't have gotten unless it was a real emergency.
The more difficult part in today's environment is getting ahead of something. Because like you say, it's out there a lot of times before we really have our arms around it.
Off the screen, back in the real world, tactical teams responded to 41 full-scale exercise scenarios, putting out fires, finding and apprehending suspects, and responding to various medical emergencies. At the end of the 3 days, participants agreed that Big X 2016 greatly contributed to the resiliency of the region and said the experience will help frame their emergency preparedness efforts for the next several years.
In today's world of technology, we've got to constantly evolve. Ultimately, our goal is to take care of our citizens.
Now, in the scrolling credits here, you'll see the vast number of different agencies and organizations that actually helped participate and put this together. It was quite a huge endeavor to make these 3 days of that exercise very worthwhile and beneficial to our regional emergency responders. So, our exercise director that you just saw, Perry Van Abonham, he said it best. Ultimately, our goal is to take care of our citizens. That's why we did this. That is why every agency that's listed there and the number of teams that I talked about earlier undertook this endeavor. Because we want to make sure that we're prepared to make sure that you are safe and taken care of. We are blessed in the North Central Texas area that we have amazing responders. We've got great resources here. But even with the highly skilled responders that we have, they all need the opportunity to train and to exercise before something actually takes place. It gives them the opportunity to hone their skills to make sure that we are taken care of in the event of a natural disaster, a man-made incident like a hazardous materials spill, or a terrorist incident that could possibly, hopefully not, but might affect us one day. So, do I have any questions?
Any questions for Tonda or the North Central Texas Council of Governments about the regional full-scale exercise? All right, please join me in giving Tonda a round of applause. And once again, our friendly firefighters from Denton Fire Department got another performance for you.
Woo! You guys are all still here. We'll get this chair over here. Anybody from Denton out there? Oh, are you on the city council? Okay, good. See, we have a problem up in Denton. People hear their smoke alarms chirp, and they think that that's a disaster. Not when it's fully alarming, but when it just chirps. So we wrote up a little song. We're taking our citizens of Denton to let them know what that chirp is, and we're going to share it with you guys here today.
another platinum record. Next up are our friendly neighborhood meteorologists. We have Rick Mitchell, meteorologist with NBC5, and Mark Fox, the warning coordination meteorologist with the National Weather Service. Did you guys have any slides or presentation? Let's load it up.
Well, good morning, everybody. As Josh said, I'm Mark Fox because you figured out very quickly that I'm not Rick Mitchell. So Rick will take over in just about 3 or 4 minutes here because I wanted to talk about pretty much the storm from last week. My house, my neighborhood got hit by an EF0 as well. We woke up right around 2 o'clock or so and then got a few things in order into the closet, but it was pretty much over with after then. Were you surprised by the storms last week? Yes? No? Okay, I'll just call you Sybil from now on. If you're under 30, you got to look up the reference. All right, so when it comes to the storms, before you went to bed that night, the Storm Prediction Center, which tries to come out with an overview of the severe weather threat, this is what we're looking at. This is for the 29th. These were issued during the afternoon on the 28th. So this was Monday, I believe, for the Tuesday morning. And then we've got the moderate risk off to the north and west. We still have the enhanced or slight risk area here. Now, when we use the term slight risk, enhanced risk, moderate risk, whatever it means, don't think of this like a chance for thunderstorms. If the Weather Service talks about a slight chance of a thunderstorm, or Rick Mitchell talks about a slight chance of rain tomorrow afternoon, most of us probably don't change our behavior very much. This is the risk of a disaster. This is about a 1 in 10 to about 15 in 100 chance of a disaster happening. So this should get your attention no matter what the words are talking about. In fact, the entire area was in about a 5 to 10% chance of a tornado. And that does not sound very high until you understand that the normal routine risk of a tornado is on the order of 0.01%. So this is about 100 times higher than normal for late March. So this is actually something that we've got to keep in the back of our minds. And then from the local level, what we do at the National Weather Service is we try to put out a few graphics. They are not nearly as pretty as what Rick can come up with or anybody else on TV. But we're talking about round 1 of thunderstorms coming through during the afternoon, and then overnight Tuesday and Wednesday, middays mixed up a little earlier, was talking about the severe threat coming through overnight. So what we were hoping to do with this is to try to get people in that mindset that this is going to be the middle of the night. I don't know about you, but I'm not going to be outside near a city park at about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning where I can hear those outdoor warning sirens very well. And in fact, most people aren't. There are some people out and about, but we put out the severe weather threat that was going to be coming through overnight. And then at about 10 o'clock, so just about the time when the late news was going on, we tried to refine the timing of this just a little bit more. And we thought that the storms would be around Eastland around 11 o'clock, and the storms coming right through the middle part of the Metroplex at around 3. We were about 30 minutes off on this. And to a weather forecaster, it's not too bad. Maybe to your house, you may be a little upset that we've got the timing off by about 30 minutes. But as far as weather forecasters go, that's not too bad of timing. That's indeed about when the storms came through that night. And at this point, it's up to you. Because we do have to have some personal responsibility here. From the National Weather Service point of view, unfortunately, with nearly 9 million people in our county warning area, I don't quite have the manpower to go around and knock on everybody's doors and say, okay, this is the one you've been worried about all your life. I wish we had that manpower, but we don't quite have that. And this is what the storm looked like at around 2:31. Now, some of this may be a little bit difficult, but my house is over here. At this moment, I have 2 teenage kids scared to death in our bed with Christy and I, and we're trying to relax because the storm pretty much came through. We're checking our house, things like that. But I don't know if you can see through here, but Rick, did they show this in meteorology school as being a textbook case of a tornado? Definitely not. So this is where our forecasters were taking a look at this and going, well, what exactly is going on? And unfortunately at 2:31 in the morning, we don't have a whole lot of people out and about telling us exactly what's going on, because the spotters are fantastic in north central Texas. They tell us a lot of good information. Unfortunately at 2:31 in the morning, sunlight is a bit of a problem. And also the winds are a little bit of a problem. Now, I can tell there's a little bit of circulation right through here, but the tornado happened here. The main line of the storms is still well back to the west. And we're just now learning that the storm is producing fairly high winds out here. Out in this area, at the moment, all the data is showing us that winds are somewhere around 20 to 30 knots.
Where are you on that?
Where am I on the map?
I mean, yeah.
That's Lake Grapevine, there's Louisville, so the storm itself is right there. In other words, it doesn't show up very well. Now, what we did have were the terminal Doppler radars, and that showed us a little bit more, but pretty much this is what was out. That the warning that was out for the west, the tornado warning stopped around here. The tornado occurred right there. The tornado warning stopped in this area, but the severe thunderstorm warning was out. And down here, we do have these little tags. Tornado is possible, but at this point, the severe thunderstorm warning is out. And with these types of tornadoes, severe thunderstorm warning rules apply. Just make sure you've got the notification, making sure you've got multiple ways to get the information, and also, just away from windows, this is not the Garland type storms where that if you're not absolutely in the middle part of your house and away from the storm, if at all possible, these are ones if you're just using common sense rules with severe thunderstorms, that is going to help save. So to us, this was kind of like a successful failure. No, the Weather Service did not have a warning out on this. I wish I could lie to you and say we had this one perfectly. This is one we're going to be learning from quite a few years, but at the same time, this also comes down to the exact opposite of what we saw in Garland, Rowlett. These are survivable, thankfully. It's just making sure you've got that information all the way through the storm from beginning, which starts a couple of days ahead. By the way, we do have a chance of severe weather on Monday, so enjoy the weekend. And this is a little bit, I could lie to you about that, but I'm not going to. So with this, I know we're going to take some questions later on. I'm happy to answer those, but for now, I'm going to pass it over to Rick and kind of let him take it from here and talk about a few other things. So we at the Weather Service try to give you the big picture overview, trying to figure out exactly what's going to happen to a point, but at some point, you've got a much bigger broadcast area than we do, a much bigger tower. So to help personalize the storm, it's up to people like Rick.
Okay, thank you, Mark, and you're not going anywhere. You're just
absolutely not.
Stick around up here. Okay, and Mark is right. We are partners. We work together. The National Weather Service and the local media, the emergency managers, fire, rescue, we all work together. Every year we get together, we have what's called the Integrated Warning Team, all right? One message, many voices. And that message is, in many cases, severe weather and how to handle it and the timing and so on and so forth. I look at my role as, yes, I'm a meteorologist. I've been one for 30 years now. Oh my gosh,
you're old.
I'm old, dude.
I have to.
But more importantly, I'm a communicator. And trying to communicate to the public, we're finding out is a lot harder than we initially thought. Because you all interpret information differently. I might say, there's a low chance of severe thunderstorms on Monday. Some of you are going to hear severe weather Monday. Some of you are going to hear low chance of a storm, not worrying about it. Others will hear different things. And so the communication part is what is probably the most difficult. But that's what our role is in working with the National Weather Service and the emergency managers. One thing Mark talked about that I've kind of gotten on my horse over, it's 2 words: personal responsibility. I'll give you an example. Last night, I got home from work, and one of my routines is I get home from work, I get my suit off, get comfortable, get me some popcorn, and I sit down and I watch a little bit of TV before I go to bed. So it's about midnight, and I had my phone turned off, or muted, and right before I went to bed I checked it, and I see I have all these messages from the station. Call us! Help! Help! Something's going on! Well, what was going on were the outdoor warning sirens were sounding in Dallas. And they kept going off. And when I called the station, all I could hear were phones ringing in the background. And I said, listen, it's nothing weather related. Not my problem. But all of these people, and I got on social media, I got on Twitter, I got on Facebook, all of these people are sending me messages. How long is this severe weather going to last? I didn't know this was coming. What is going on? And I just wanted to say, are you living under a rock? It is not severe weather, and you should know that. You should know that. That is part of your personal responsibility to check that weather forecast. I know a lot of people aren't interested in the weather until it's knocking on their door. That's wrong, all right? We can do so much. As Mark said, we don't have the ability to come to your house and tell you, okay, now's the time, you gotta get in that shelter. You have to take responsibility. And last night was a clear indication to me that a lot of folks kind of walk around in a haze with respect to weather. And you know what? Maybe I do it with other things. Maybe I'm in a haze over other things outside of weather. But with the weather, it is our job to make sure that you're prepared, but it's also your job, okay? When we work together, just like Mark and I work together, great things can happen. If you're prepared and you understand what the weather may be doing in the coming days, then the information we give you is going to make sense. But if you walk around just like, well, I didn't know this was going to come. How many times, Mark, do we hear, and we may talk about a weather event for days, and we hear the famous, wow, I had no idea it was coming. You've got to make sure that you stay educated on the weather and informed. And that could be as simple as checking the National Weather Service homepage. Seriously, one of the first things I do when I wake up in the morning, Mark talked about his weather graphics, I use them all the time. I get my coffee, I go in the office, I get on the computer, and I look to see what graphics they have up. And many times, I will then put them out on my Facebook page or my Twitter page saying, hey, heads up, today's going to be nice, but Monday may be kind of stormy. So we work together on that. And I think that, you know, it's of the utmost importance that we stay on our toes, we check those things, you know. The idea of just kind of wandering around aimlessly when it comes to the weather is not an option. I think we need to stay weather aware. And that's where the National Weather Service and the local media, NBC5, I'm going to promote my station since I'm the only one here. Might as well do that. We take it seriously. I work for David Finfrock, who's been doing this for 42 years. I remind him frequently how old he is.
I do too.
Yeah. And, you know, of course, he was trained under Harold Taft. I'm sure some of you remember that. And we take what we do very seriously. We're a bunch of weather geeks who love talking about the weather. And hopefully we pass some of that fascination on to you. But again, that personal responsibility is not just knowing the forecast, but then knowing what to do and where to go. You know? And I always break it down to two little rules. Get as low as you can, put as many walls in between you and the outside, and, you know, most of the time, the vast majority of the time, you follow those two rules, you're going to be fine. As Mark said, you know, the tornado risk on a daily basis is extremely low. And even on a bad day,
it's still pretty low.
It's still pretty low. I mean, I've been seeking and searching and hoping that I can see a tornado in my years. I've not seen one, because I'm always at the station, you know. If I'm not at the station, I'm washing David's car and stuff like that. But you still have to, you know, you still have to be prepared. And you have to know that even when there are tornadoes, the vast majority of them are definitely survivable by just taking some simple precautions. You know, most of our tornadoes are zeros, ones, and twos. You know, we did have we had the EF4 in Garland. It's a very small percentage of that tornado was EF4. But what we have here in North Texas is certainly survivable with a little advanced planning. So, I don't want to take too much time. If you have any questions, Mark would love to answer them, or I can try to chime in if you have anything.
I'll take the easy ones, all the tough ones go to Rick.
Any questions for our friendly neighborhood meteorologist?
Or me.
Or Mark? Yes, sir.
Is this on? Yes, good. I saw something from the Weather Channel about the high number of tornadoes that we've had in the first 3 months, and I went to the Storm Center reporting thing, and I've looked at the data, and I noticed that there's 409 nationally through the first 3 months compared to an average since 2000 of 155, and I want to know, is this any indication of what we can expect the rest of the summer, or is there no correlation?
There's no true correlation that we can see so far. This is an unusual year, but we have had a lot of what we nerds call QLCS type tornadoes, tornadoes that occur within a squall line. And it's been an unusual year for a few squall lines coming maybe just a little bit earlier, but it also, back in 1966 when I was born, we still had these little QLCS, little spin-up tornadoes. But nobody had a cell phone to document them. And these days, I think we are seeing better documentation of these smaller tornadoes, and you will see the number of those rise just a little bit. We're still on kind of the upper end, but unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of correlation with that.
And there's times where a quick April can, I've seen Mays that end up being fairly quiet, and I don't have a way of knowing if that would be the case.
If I did, I'd be a rich, rich man.
Does it mean these little squall that crop up are going to be more like the things that we've seen this past event?
Those typically, if you remember last March 8th and March 17th, we had the same type of storms. These usually occur early in the spring and then kind of die out. So once we get into April and May, kind of the classic type storms take over.
Good questions. Any other questions? Right here. We'll bring the mic to you.
When was the last usual year? Every year, I swear, it was different than the year before, and it's weird.
Texas?
It's called radiant, whatever.
There is no such thing as normal weather in Texas. You go from years of incredibly active severe weather to nothing. You go from droughts to floods. You go from one extreme to the other. Texas is really a place of extremes, so I do not like using normals because it only takes one storm to ruin your life.
And that is so true. I find that the public perception is that we're all waiting. We're waiting for normal to come back. It's not. This is normal. I don't know how many times I have to respond to people to say, this is it, folks. This is, yeah. It's going to be 110 at some point in August, and eventually it will snow again, We will have severe weather. This is normal. And I think a lot of people have what's called weather amnesia. I've coined that term. They forget that crazy things happen all the time in Texas weather, and really U.S. weather, global weather. But you remember, normal is an average of the extremes.
I think it's great to live in a state that can have all 4 seasons on the same day.
It snowed in Texas last week.
Yeah, it did.
Really keeps us
in
on
the
our
Texas
toes.
Panhandle, it had several inches of snow.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a telephone number that you could call to get the weather forecast for the next 2 weeks?
For the next...
yeah, Mark, give him your cell phone number.
Rick's cell phone number is... If you call this number up here, that can get you to a place where you can press whatever it is for the forecast or press another number to actually talk to a human being. But you can give that a call and you get the weather forecast right there.
Okay, thank you.
Or I think there's some TV guys that can give you that forecast too.
AccuWeather has a 40-day forecast.
Got time for another question or two, if you guys have them?
I've heard that.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
The tornado that hit downtown Fort Worth, has it already been like 20 years ago or something?
Yeah, 20 years this year.
What was the strength of that one?
That was an F3. That was before we started doing the enhanced Fujita scales. But that was an F3. I forget the top wind on that one, 135, 138. I was actually working at the office as a youngster during that time, so I remember that day quite well. And I also heard on that day, I had no idea there was severe weather. There was.
Yes.
Another question? If you guys will join me in giving these folks a round of applause here. And I believe now Congressman Burgess would like to make a couple of remarks.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Rick. And if you are not following these individuals on Twitter, for those of you who know what Twitter is, they are good to follow on Twitter. They will always let you know of what is happening, what is pending. We're going to conclude the inside part of this now, and I want to take a moment to thank a number of people who've been with us this morning. The event is not over, and I do want to stress that. As soon as we close out here, we are going to go outside for the, what do they call it, the pups and props, or the dogs and drones. The drones are first, and then the dogs. And once again, this year we have Sky, Scout, and Billy, who are anxious to meet you, so be certain you do make the transition to the outdoor portion of this. We have been very fortunate today. We've had wonderful presenters. We've had very informative presentations. Certainly this weather presentation we just heard from Mark and Rick, very, very helpful. And again, if you're not following these two individuals on Twitter, I encourage you to do so. I do hope you've been able to get some information from today's presentations and exhibits, and I hope you will be able to use that in both your home life and in your business. I do want to thank the Louisville Independent School District, the Louisville High School, for acting as our hosts today. Certainly want to thank the City of Louisville, the Denton County Emergency Services for tremendous assistance and support. I'm going to take a moment of personal privilege, and I want to recognize the interns that are working in my office this term. Hannah Frosch from UNT, there's Hannah over there on the corner. Ken Stibler, who's been taking photographs furiously all morning. Thank you, Ken. And Sophia Apollo from the Coram Deo Academy. And Sophia, thank you for your participation this morning. These kids volunteer. They're not paid. They're here on a Saturday morning trying to ensure that we have a successful event. So let's give them a nice hand. And although he's not part of the official party, the son of my district director, Eric With, Nielsen is here with us this morning. He's going to be a Barrett. I mentioned him, but he is an unpaid volunteer. And I've told him that if his dad had a better job, he'd have him at a ball game today or something. But nevertheless, Eric is here, and his son came with him, and I really appreciate them. Eric With is my district director, and Eric is around here somewhere. He is a good contact person to know if there is an issue you want to bring up with me. Melanie Torres, who is standing with Jane Loomis at the side, and Melanie and Jane do constituent service in the office. If you have a problem with a federal agency, they are the ones to know. Joan Self, many of you know, because Joan sits at the front desk in my office in Lake Dallas. There's Joan. If I do anything wrong or vote the wrong way, Joan is sort of my early warning system. She hears about it right away. And then finally, Robin Vaughn, who really puts a lot of effort into getting these summits up and off the ground. And I certainly want to thank Robin, but can we just have a nice hand for my staff, please? And that concludes the early part of this. Sky, Scout, and Billy await us outside for the outside demonstrations. The drones are cranked up and ready to go to do whatever drones do. Thank you very much. I really cannot stress enough how important it is, and you've heard several people say this morning, the first effort is your effort, and the success of your getting through any